Poštovani, dobrodošli na 9. međunarodnu konferenciju Antropološki te antropološki pogled na fizičke aktivnosti, koja se po treći put održava online. Želim da vas sve pozdravim. Zvanični jezik konferencije je srpski i engleski, tako da možemo da koristimo i srpski i engleski. Welcome to 8th Conference International Conference Anthropological te Anthropological Review on Physical Activity. Official language is on our conference in Serbian and English, and you can use both what you want. First, we can start with open ceremony. I have one speech of my dean, and I want to read it, and this is something like welcome reception. Dear colleagues, on behalf of Faculty of Sport and Physical Education, University of Pristina, in Leposavić, and in the name of my dean, Professor Ljubiša Lilić, I would like to welcome you to the 9th International Conference entitled Anthropological and Anthropological View of Physical Activities. In our 10 years of existence and scientific work, we have hosted more than 80 top invited lectors from 35 countries with a total of almost 400 scientific publications. Of course, that would not have been possible without you, our dear guests from Serbia, as well as the region and Europe. On this occasion, I would like to especially thank FIEP Serbia and FIEP Europe for recognizing common interest not only in the organization of this international conference, which is becoming recognizable in the region, but also in the organization of scientific, professional, and educational work. I would also like to thank our co-organizers from the Faculty of Sport and Physical Education and in Niš and Belgrade, who selflessly help us make this conference of this quality by providing professors from those faculties every year. Thank you for Niš and Belgrade. Also, I would like to thank our co-organizers from Republic of Srpska, University of East Sarajevo and Banja Luka, with whom we have established cooperation in all fields in the last few years, making teachers and associates from those faculties always welcome guests. In my humble opinion, the organization of such a successful conference would not be possible without cooperation with professional associations, the Association Sport for All Serbia, which we especially thank because it provided support from our first conference, as well as Serbian Association of Ski Instructors, who are glad to see us due to the location of the conference on Kopaonik. We would also like to thank the Ministry of Education, Science and Technological Development, which recognized the quality of this international conference and thus provided us with full support. We sincerely hope that next year the Jubilee 10 conference will take place, small jubilee for us, but it's a very important live, and all of you will be welcome guests of Kopaonik in the heart of Serbia, and as always, we will make sure to be good hosts. Thanks. And now, we are proud to invite Professor Borislav Cicović, the Dean of the Faculty of Physical Education and Sport, University of East Sarajevo, to give an invited small speech in few minutes. Professor Cicović, izvolite profesore.
Hvala profesore Stankoviću. Čujemo se dobro?
Odlično.
Hvala vam. Prvo bih želio da pozdravim uvažene koleginice i kolege, uvažene profesore i da vas pozdravim u ime Fakulteta fizičkog vaspitanja i sporta Sapala, Univerziteta u Istočnom Sarajevu. Pre otprilike 6 godina prepoznali smo uspješnost i kvalitet međunarodne konferencije koji je organizovao Fakultet za sport i fizičko vaspitanje Univerziteta u Prištini sa privremenim sedištem u Leposaviću. Privukla nas je izuzetna lokacija, pozivni predavači, veliki broj saopštenja, još veći broj učesnika konferencije i postakli su nas da zajedno učestvujemo u organizaciji ove međunarodne konferencije, možemo reći evo već 4. godinu. Fakultet koji ja predstavljam je prepoznao važnost saradnje ne samo sa fakultetom u Leposaviću, nego i saradnje sa srodnim fakultetima u Republici Srbiji i u regionu. Kao i ranijih godina, na ovoj konferenciji učestvuju kompetentni univerzitetski nastavnici, istraživači iz relevantnih naučnih oblasti, koji nesumnjivo obećavaju visoki nivo ove naučne konferencije. Kao suorganizator konferencije, zajedno sa ostalim fakultetima, nastojali smo da se u okviru nje stvore uslovi za razratanje mnogih aktuelnih pitanja u fizičkom vaspitanju, pitanju u sportu, u sportskoj rekreaciji i da se na njoj izlaže rezultati istraživanja koji se tiču svih ovih aspekata. Za naš fakultet je izuzetno važna saradnja sa srodnim fakultetima, ne samo kad je u pitanju ova konferencija, već i kad su u pitanju celina našeg naučno-obrazovnog rada, što uključuje mobilnost studenata i nastavnika i školovanje naših mladih kadrova na univerzitetima u regionu. Posebno bi se zahvalili domaćinu ove konferencije, kod kojih smo rado viđeni, ne samo kao gosti, već kao ravnopravni saradnici, tako da smatramo uspjeh ove današnje konferencije i svojim ličnim uspjehom. Hvala vam, profesore, i hvala svima.
Hvala, thank you. And now we are proud to announce the Professor Carlos Castelar Otin from University of Zaragoza, who will giving small speech in a few minutes. Buenos dias, Carlos.
Good morning. Buenos dias, my friends. First of all, welcome to this edition of the Congress, still virtual. I hope next year we can all see in Copa Unit, but physically. So, many thanks to the University of Pristina and your Faculty of Sport and Physical Education for this invitation for the presentation. The University of Zaragoza has collaborated with the University of Pristina and with this conference since last 5 years. Thanks to this collaboration, we have created a network of relationship with the University of Pristina, but also with the University of Belgrade and the University of Nice, both in Serbia. In this context, we also belong to the International Federation of Physical Education in the section of the history of physical education. And now, maybe, I think this is the moment to start our relationship through the Erasmus program. So for students and other teachers can get to know other countries and improve their knowledge. We will work with this idea. And finally, but not less important, we have created good personal and friendly relationship between teachers and research from Serbia and other countries. I hope that the conference will be interesting for all. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you, Carlos. With us is a very important person for cooperation between our universities. With us is Vice Rector for Scientific Work of our university. And now I will be proud to announce the Vice Rector, Professor Jovan Bazic, full professor for University of Pristina, Vice Rector for Science, and he will give a small speech in a few minutes, and he will open the conference. Profesor Baziću, dobar dan, drago nam je što ste sa nama i izvolite.
Hvala najlepše. Dragi koleginice i poštovane kolege, poštovani učesnici 9. Međunarodne naučne konferencije, antropološki i teoantropološki pogled na fizičke aktivnosti. Veoma sam počastvovan pozivom da vam se obratim u ime Univerziteta u Prištini sa privremenim sedištem u Kosovskoj Mitrovici i da vas pozdravim u ime rektora, profesora doktora Nebojše Arsića, kao i u svoje lično ime. Ova konferencija je od izuzetnog značaja, ne samo zbog svoje plemenite misije kojom se omogućuje mnogim univerzitetskim nastavnicima i istraživačima da izlože rezultate svojih istraživanja i novostečena znanja kako bi se unapredila nastava fizičkog vaspitanja i sporta, već i zbog toga što se ona održava u kontinuitetu već 9. godinu za redom. Fizička aktivnost u modernom društvu postaje sve nužnija, jer savremeno čovečanstvo je u dubokoj komi fizičke nepokretnosti i već se uveliko pune zdravstvene ustanove ljudima koji pokušavaju da se izleče od različitih bolesti uzrokovanih fizičkim neaktivizmom. Zato je vaš rad dragocen, pa i ova i slične konferencije sve više imaju smisla. Duboko sam uveren da bi nam svima bilo draže da radimo u normalnim okolnostima, kako bismo neposredno razmenili svoje stavove, svoja saznanja i iskustva. Nadam se da ćemo sledeće godine biti u prilici da se ponovo vidimo na Kopaoniku. Ovim otvaram 9. međunarodnu naučnu konferenciju Antropološki i teoantropološki pogled na fizičke aktivnosti. Želim vam puno uspeha u radu.
Hvala prorektore Baziću. Now our conference is official opening and it's a proud for me and for this conference because we have three very good professors from 3 different universities. Luis Carrasco Paez from University of Sevilla, Milivoj Dobsa University of Belgrade, and Zoran Milanovic from University of Niš, who will give us invited lectures. We are proud to announce the first invited lecture, speaker Professor Luis Carrasco Paez. Buenos dias, Professor. You are from University of Sevilla. The first time you are our guest for our conference, and I hope so that's not last one.
Okay, thank you. Buenos dias, good morning from Seville in Spain.
Okay, you can start.
Okay,
I will, you are, yes.
Give me a second to...
Yes, you are I will make co-host now, and you can share your screen.
Yeah, okay. Give me a second to I try to share my screen. It's correct.
Yes, it's correct.
I think so. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope my sound is clear. First of all, I like to thank the academic authorities and the organizing committee, especially to Professor Stankovic, for considering my participation in this event as keynote speaker. It's a pity not to be able to enjoy your country and your company in person, but it's necessary to reduce the COVID-19 pandemic's impact and to recover our lifestyles as soon as possible. Well, during the last decades, the benefits of regular exercise for brain health, particularly for cognition and mental health, have been well reported by both observational and experimental human studies. Although many of these studies were focused on the effects of chronic exercise in cognitively impaired subjects, recent investigations have highlighted the role of exercise improving cognitive abilities and preventing the decline of cognition across the lifespan in healthy individuals. On the other hand, significant evidence exists to suggest that exercise programs can improve treatment outcomes for different mental disorders, especially those that affect mood. However, the mechanism of acute and chronic exercise improved brain function are still not completely known. Thus, the aim of this keynote presentation is to reinforce the potential of exercise as a useful tool to improve cognitive functioning, and mental health, and how muscle-brain crosstalk could play a key role in these exercise-related benefits. Well, to a better understanding of how exercise improves cognition, it's necessary first to consider executive functions. First, because they are necessary to develop complex cognitive processes, and second, because they are sensitive to exercise-related stress. Executive functions refer to a family of mental processes needed when you have to concentrate and pay attention. That is, when going on automatic or relying on instinct would be insufficient or impossible. There is general agreement that there are three core executive functions. First, inhibitory control, including self-control or behavioral control, that is, resisting temptations and not acting impulsively, and interference control, that is related with related to selective attention. Second place, working memory, which involves holding information in mind and mentally working with it. This information can be verbal or not verbal, that is visual spatial. And cognitive flexibility in the third place, also called mental flexibility, which allows to change perspective, especially or interpersonally, that is, to say or to think from different points of view. Well, from these interconnected executive functions, more complex cognitive abilities are built, such as reasoning, problem solving, and also planning. Moreover, executive functions are skills essential for mental and physical health, cognitive, social, and psychological development, and also success in school. In fact, improvements in academic performance could reflect increases in executive function abilities. With the aim to evaluate the relationships between fitness and academic achievement, Grissom in 2005 compared scores of the Fitness Grand Battery to reading and mathematics scores of the Stanford Achievement Test in nearly 1 million students from 5th to 9th grade. Results indicate a consistent positive relationships between overall fitness and academic achievement. That is, as overall fitness score improve, mean achievement scores also improve. This relationship between fitness and achievement appears to be stronger for females than males, and stronger also for higher socioeconomic status students. A recent study was also aimed to examine the association between health-related physical fitness, cardiorespiratory fitness, and muscular fitness, skill-related physical fitness, speed agility test, and cognitive functions, working memory, and inhibitory control, in a total of 423 Dutch adolescents from 12 to 15 years. Physical fitness was assessed using 5 tests of the Eurofit battery, whereas academic achievement was evaluated by 2 standardized tests assessing mathematics and language skills. The results showed that speed agility was significantly related to visuospatial working memory and inhibitory control, but not to the other cognitive or academic outcomes. Cardiorespiratory fitness and muscular fitness were also not related to any of the cognitive or academic achievement outcomes. On the other hand, it has been demonstrated that exercise programs can improve treatment outcomes for different mental disorders, especially those that affect mood and depressive symptoms. In 2018, a systematic review and meta-analysis of the role of physical activity and sedentary behavior in the mental health of children and adolescents were performed. In this review, studies were included if they included physical activity or sedentary behavior data and at least one physiological ill-being, for example, depression or anxiety, stress or negative affect, or psychological well-being outcomes, for example, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-efficacy, and so on. All of them in children and adolescents aged 6 to 18 years. Results of meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials showed a small but significant overall effect on physical activity on mental health, with a huge effect size. Regarding the effects of exercise on brain health, Carvalho and colleagues in 2015 compared the effects of 3 programs: strength training, aerobic training, and physiotherapy on motor symptoms and functional capacity in Parkinson's disease patients. The 12 weeks strength program was performed at an intensity of 80% of 1 repetition maximum, whereas the intensity of aerobic training was set at 70% of maximum heart rate. The Parkinson's disease motor symptoms in the group of patients who performed strength training and aerobic training improved by 27.5% and 35% respectively, what means effect size up to 2.6. That is a huge effect size. By contrast, the physiotherapy group showed an improvement of only 3%. Well, up until this point, we have seen some direct effects of exercise on cognition and mental health. However, it's important to know what underlying mechanisms are behind these effects. Acute exercise promotes the release of a pool of neuronal and vascular growth factors, mainly from central nervous system, but also from other tissues such as skeletal muscle. Some of these factors stimulate endothelial cell proliferation and play a key role in brain vascular remodeling. Thus, the vascular growth factors allow an increase in brain blood flow, increasing both the neurotransmitter circulation and the supply of oxygen and nutrients to neuronal cells. On the other hand, other growth factors called neurotrophins regulate neuronal cells growth, which is known as neurogenesis, and their survival, differentiation, and also transformation. If we take all these neuronal changes together, we are referring to neuroplasticity. To explain what neuroplasticity is, I'm going to use a case report image. Well, this is an NMR image of a lateral view of human head. As it can be appreciated, this subject, a young man of 23 years, has a condition named hydrocephalus, in which the cerebrospinal fluid replaces a large part of the brain tissue. At this point, one could think that this is a disabled subject with motor and cognitive disabilities. But he is a brilliant student of mathematics at the University of Sheffield, having an intelligence quotient of 126. At this point, the question is clear: how is possible? It is possible thanks to neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity refers to the ability of the brain and central nervous systems to adapt to environmental change, respond to injury, and to acquire novel information by modifying neural connectivity and function. The brain does this through a multitude of mechanisms and can range from changes in synapses to the addition of new adult-generated neurons, which is neurogenesis, you know. And in any case, these adaptations are mediated by neurotrophins and neurotropic factor. Many of them are secreted by neurons in the central nervous systems, but also in other tissues and cell types. For example, skeletal muscle. Well, this is a case of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, since it is released from neurons, platelets, and skeletal muscle cells. Considering that BDNF crossed the blood-brain barrier, it's logical to think that exercise has a facilitating effect on neuroplasticity. In fact, it has been demonstrated that exercise-related BDNF responses are associated with hippocampal neurogenesis, increases in number of dendritic spines and neurons, and consequently increased synaptic function. Just as BDNF, another brain health-related proteins are released from myocytes, so they have been called myokines. In fact, BDNF is considered one of the most relevant myokines. Myokines are defined as a wide spectrum of active molecules that are directly synthesized and released by skeletal muscle fibers. Myokines exert their effects in either autocrine, paracrine, or endocrine manners. From an autocrine perspective, some myokines, especially BDNF, masculine leukemia inhibitory factor, and several cytokines such as IL-6 exert their effect within the skeletal muscle itself and are involved in the regulation of muscle mass and muscle metabolism. The paracrine and endocrine effects of myokines are focused on muscle surrounding tissues or distant organs. For instance, IL-6 is involved in lipolysis regulation, whereas irisin and insulin-like growth factor 1 seem to play a key role on bone regeneration. Anyway, more than 600 myokines have been identified, although biological function has been described for only 5% of them. During exercise, myokines mediate muscle organ crosstalk to the brain, adipose tissue, bone, liver, the gut, pancreas, and also skin. Nevertheless, and considering the preventive and therapeutic potential of exercise, the muscle-brain crosstalk is perhaps the most relevant connection. The neuroprotective effects of BDNF and irisin against brain and mental disorders make these myokines of additional value in the sport sciences research. In fact, I'm going to share with you two of the last manuscripts published by my colleagues and me about the effects of exercise on brain health-related myokines. The first manuscript is entitled Acute Effects of High-Intensity Interval Training on BDNF, Cortisol, and Working Memory in Physical Education College Students, and was published in December 2020. The aim of this study was to determine the effects of an acute bout of heat on neurocognitive and stress-related biomarkers and their association with working memory capacity in healthy young adults. 25 male college students performed a single bout of heat consisting in 10 repetitions of 1 minute of cycling at their VO2 peak power output. Plasma BDNF, cortisol levels, and verbal working memory using the DigitalSpan test were assessed pre, post, and 30 minutes post-intervention. As you can see, significant post-exercise increases in circulating BDNF and cortisol levels were observed, coinciding with the highest working memory performance. However, no statistical association were found between cognitive and neurophysiological variables. Moreover, DigitalSpan test scores obtained 30 minutes after exercise remain higher than those assessed at pre-exercise. The second manuscript, entitled Effects of Padel Competition on Brain Health-Related Myokines, was published last year. As you know, padel is becoming one of the most widespread racket sports with potential health benefits. Considering that several myokines mediate the crosstalk between skeletal muscle and the brain exerting positive effects on brain health status, this study was designed to evaluate the responses of BDNF, leukemia inhibitory factor, and irisin to padel competition in trained players and to determine whether these responses were sex-dependent. A total of 24 trained padel players, 14 women and 10 men, with a mean age of 28 years, participated voluntarily in this study. Well, circulating levels of these myokines were assessed before and after simulated padel competition. Then the duration of mean duration of each match was 28 minutes, and the relative intensity were measured at 75% of maximum heart rate. Instead, for BDNF responses observed in female players, no significant changes in leukemia inhibitory factor and irisin concentration were reported after padel competition. In addition, as you can see, no sex-related differences were found. Well, concluding, it can be said that, one, although there is strong evidence that exercise can improve cognition, more research is needed to determine what type is most appropriate to improve executive functioning and academic performance. Is dual task high-intensity exercise the best option? We must clarify if exercise programs combined with cognitive training are more efficient than single task interventions, that is, exercise or cognitive training performed alone. Second, exercise should be considered as a safe and effective treatment against brain injuries and mental disorders. And the last point, the assessment of brain health-related myokines could serve as a valid tool to evaluate the potential for exercise and sports to have effects on cognition and mental health. Well, just before to finish this presentation, I'd like to show you a reflection of one of the greatest scientists of all time. That's all. Thank you so much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Muchas gracias. We heard a very interesting presentation, effects of exercise on cognitive functioning and mental health. And we heard something about correlation between speed, agility, other ability skills, and mental health. And I want to ask our guests, do we have some question for Professor Luis?
Okay.
Yes or no? Professor Luis, thank you very much.
Thank you for all your attention. It has been an honor for me to participate in this event. Okay, I hope to keep in touch with you.
Okay. Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we have some problem with internet, and now we have another invited presentation, Play for Fun, Forgotten Piece in Current Football Puzzle, Professor Zoran Milanovic. And I invited her, Professor, to give an invited lecture. Professor Milanovic is one very great young professor from University of Niš. Profesore Milanoviću, izuzetno nam je drago što ste danas ovde sa nama.
Hvala vam. First of all, you should disable another presenter to allow me to share my screen, please.
Yes.
And in the meantime, I have a great privilege to be one of the speakers at a conference such as yours. So I'm very happy, but at the same time, I'm sad that we cannot be on site and meet each other. Anyway, I hope we will meet soon on site of your conference. So
your
please,
co-host, I think you can share screen.
Okay, right now.
Yes, it's okay.
Good. We agreed previously that I will switch to Serbian, but I realized that there is few participants from Spain and realized that others are able to follow in English. Therefore, I will change my mind and present in English. So I hope it's not a problem. Today, I'm going to talk about one very interesting and hot topic related to football. We all know that football is a very popular sport worldwide in every country. However, there is some other problems related to early specialization and some other issues. Therefore, I should turn the microphone, some microphones mute, please. Therefore, I'm going to talk about child in football as well as benefits of recreational football in the childhood population. First and foremost, how it's usually started and how it's going is one timeline of each parents in world in football. And usually parents decided to provide opportunity to kids to play a football just to be far away from a screen such as TV or mobile, because we all know and we are well aware that many kids spend a lot of time in front of the screen. And this is just first idea at the beginning of why we send our kids to play some sports, especially football. Another, after a few weeks, we realize, yes, it's a fun and my kid love it or like it, and he's happy playing football. Therefore, whole family is satisfied by activities that kids are involved. However, practice is showing that after a few weeks, we have first change of mind of parents, usually, and it's the first time they start to think about the quality of kids and how they play, good or not so good, and they start to be involved in training sessions more and more. After just few weeks or few months, usually parents switch from the primary idea to be far from the screen. They start to talk about trophies, medals, how they won it, even it's the age of 7. And if you think it's the end of the story in relationship with parents and kids, no, they start also to express some not good and polite behavior, to argue and discuss referee decisions, or even more, is it code good or not, and how they can improve it. This is still the age of 7, and story is going on. The first turnover period is related when parents usually start to negotiate which kid is the best in the squad. And this is the first arguments between parents, which is not good for kids because they are already children. So they start to discuss and argue which one is who is the best in the squad and who scored more goals. Even more, they started suggest some additional training sessions because they don't believe in train smart and not harder. And it's especially present in Serbia when they advise coaches to train more and more to develop player better or faster or something like that. Even we have a smart coach who refused any advices from parents' side. Parents find new coaches, specialists for different profiles such as strength training, performance analysis, sprint training, or some other additional trainings. Even kids are at the age of 10, 11, or 12, and when it's obviously not necessary for further development of players at that age. And another story is also more problematic when some managers usually comes to parents and start offer some opportunities to develop players further and see superstars even they're at the age of 10. They start negotiating that school and education is not so important. You can see many players in the world without school, they earn the money, they are very successful, they're very popular, and this is negative side of football for sure. They stop to play for fun because they always put the pressure to players to be better and score more goals or be more serious on training sessions. So there is no train for fun, which is the base of children participant in football. At the same time, they insist to train in the morning, train evening, play matches during the weekend or play even every day. If some kids is better than other players, they play for older generations or they have more matches during the weekend. And it's the period of completely lost in career development and so on. Furthermore, parents are thinking about new clubs, better options with more profit or more opportunity to develop careers. And usually players from the age of 10 to the age of 13 change several clubs, looking for better opportunities, for better coach, or even more higher profit and salary. And finally, we are at the end of this typical story, not only in Serbia, in many countries of the world. But unfortunately, this typical story is end at the age of 13 when 70% of kids drop out from the football. This is a really sad fact. And as you can see, 70% of them stop training because of many reasons I'm going to explain in a later session. But start from the beginning. Why children usually play football or why they drop out from the football? They play football, the first and foremost thing is play to have a fun, to have friends. Then after that, they play football to improve their skills, or they follow their role model, because football is all day on TV and they're all well aware about great players such as Messi, Ronaldo, Mbappe, and so on. Therefore, they would like to be like role models. And finally, the fifth reason why they are playing football is to challenge themselves. But the most important is to have fun or play to fun. And if you review my previous timeline and how long they play for fun, we will see it later. At the other side, they also models and finally kindly ask someone to turn microphone on to please turn microphone off. So at the same time, they drop out from the football because it's not fun anymore, and then don't play enough because most of the coaches are results oriented and they provide not equal time to all players. They just take care about results and the position on the table. And furthermore, the pressure is really high nowadays from both sides, from parents and from coaches. So they are not interested to play anymore. Or some other bad stories is related to injury because of overtraining syndrome and many training sessions and many matches during 1 week or one season. It's more likely to be injured during a early career, even in childhood. And the fifth part of why they drop out football, it's too competitive and they cannot compete with others, so they realize they are not good enough and they drop out from the football. But what is the bigger problem? One of the biggest problem we have nowadays is early specialization in football. We have a lot of invitation from football academies worldwide to offer supervised training sessions even for the kids age 3 to 5. You can just Google and search, and there is a lot of opportunity in almost each country. And it's quite well known that early specialization is not guarantee for quality and further players development. One very interesting article is written almost 10 years ago, and where Olympic Committee, Medical Commission provide recommendation that more scientific research should be done to better identify, is it early specialization really beneficial for athletes or not? And it was more than 10 years ago. And if you search nowadays, even they recommend more research. We have no clear picture and no evidence-based practice. Is it early specialization really beneficial for athletes and especially football players? The most of theory is based on 10,000 training hours, which can lead to some additional benefits and divide elite from non-elite athletes. However, the valid and well-designed research for this topic is really is not often nowadays, and because we have agreement between coaches that the more you train, the better you are. However, scientific evidence are not approve such approach. Even more, we have contradictory findings. And as I already mentioned, 10,000 hours practice is actually created on a musician. And after that, they make generalization on athletes and sports. However, it doesn't work in practice. One very nice study from Denmark compared the elite Danish athletes, sample of almost 150, with near athletes. It's 100 near athletes, and they compare their time spent in trainings during early childhood. And what they observed that elite athletes spend less training hours during early childhood compared to near elite, and furthermore, elite athletes spend more hours in training session after adolescent period. So they clearly show that there is no need to have more training sessions and more training hours during early childhood. One also very interesting data show that an example, if we compare international medalists, how they train main sport activities and how much they train other sport practice, we can see that medalists spend much more time until the age of 18 training in practice other training activities than the major one compared to non-medalists. So especially until the age 10 or in the period between 11 and 40 years, they spend less time in main sport practice or trainings compared to non-medalists. Therefore, non-medalists are early specialized in these studies. And also we have accumulated other sport practice, how much they train other sport practice till the age of 10. You can obviously see that medalists till the age of 10 spend much more time in activities which are other sport activities that they won the medal. And this is trend similar till the age of 18. So obviously, early specialization is not a guarantee of medals, and especially in football. Furthermore, we can analyze the top countries who exported the most players and countries with the highest rate of players in top 5 football leagues. And we can see that in Brazil, England, France, or Portugal, we have that players start around the age of 5 to train football. And the first supervised training session usually start at the age of 7 or 8. So very early they have supervised sport-oriented training session. And what is the bigger problem is the competition. They have organized league and matches even at the age of 8 or 7, like in England. But most of them start at the age of 8. Kids has regular competition and they start to compete between each other. So therefore, they forgot the play for fun even at the age of 8. If we deeply analyze this study, we can see comparison between competition, practice, and play, just play for fun, from according to age categories and based on average hours per year. And you can obviously realize that under 6, play for fun is the most present activities. However, we have turnover point or crossover point even at the age 10. And what is also interesting that from the age of 10 till the age of 13, the amount of practice is almost double, from 200 hours per year to almost 400 hours per year. At the same time, the play for fun dropped down and the number of matches also increased. So at the age of 13, we have around 80 hours per year during the matches and games. It means that they spend 1.5 hours playing competitive matches or games during each week. Their games are shorter than usual, and it usually lasts 45 minutes. So it means that kids at the age of 10 till 13 play 2 matches or 2 games per week. It's the same amount like professional football players playing nowadays in the top clubs, which are included in both national competition and Champions League. And many times we argue that 2 matches per week is very demanding and can lead to injury in professional football players. But no one argued that for kids, 2 matches at the age of 10 is also a big problem, which can have long-term consequences. So we have different opinions, but no one cares about players at the youth academies. And if we further analyze why and when most of the players drop out from the football is the age of 13, and we make parallel and consider the figure below, we can see that at the age of 13, we have dramatical increase of practice, and it's obvious, and decrease of play for fun, and obvious one of the reasons why kids leave football at the age of 13 is enormous amount of competition and practice instead of play for fun. And we should be all aware, not only coaches, it should also be present to parents and sports scientists. The reason why players start very early is different. Just one example from open academies very early, because they believe that 2% of population is talented for sport. It's at the age of 4 or 5. They will choose basketball or handball or other sports, and football will lose talent. It's not fair enough, but it's how work in the practice. An example, in Serbia, it's a bit different. We start very early, and many academies are open for the kids at the age of 4 because they are oriented toward profit, and they would like to have as many kids as possible. So they open and sessions for very youth kids. And this is the different reason and motive behind the scene and early specialization. But we should also inform all the audience that early specialization, one very nice book is It Wise to Specialize? Johnny O'Sullivan, who clearly concluded early specialization increase overuse injuries in young athletes even by 50%. And another problem is when kids drop out from the football, they don't continue with any other type of physical activity. So they stop immediately and they start to be and inactive for longer period of time. And finally, there is children who specialized earlier has great risk for burnout or decreased motivation or lack of enjoyment. At the other side, we are a group of authors from worldwide who support football as a medicine concept and playing for fun in that period. To clearly send a message, there is no need for early specialization, and there is no reason to start as early as we have nowadays. What we already found that football as a recreational type of activities, even in childhood population, has broad spectrum physical fitness benefits because it simultaneously improves several fitness parameters such as cardiovascular, such as respiratory, bone health, or so on. And it's good type of physical activities compared to other because the level of motivation is much higher among kids during a childhood to play football than have continuous running or high intensity intermittent type of activities. To be more precise, during the recreational football, the average intensity is around 80% of heart rate maximum. However, 20% is spent in high intensity. And we know nowadays that it's a very important to have high intensity for develop some cardiovascular abilities, even in shorter time. Another study from our lab showed that recreational football is also good to reduce aggression in high school children, and we all know that it's a very big problem nowadays. So not only fitness component, recreational football could be good social program for some kind of aggression reduction among high school children. And we publish a lot of papers on similar topics to show how recreational football is benefit, but I just present the most important. And one of the most important is how recreational football could reduce obesity in overweight and obese kids, the urgent problem of our society. What we conclude that during recreational football, we change our body and body mass much better than when practice physical education alone or physical education plus high intensity interval training. What we also found is that physical education with 2 classes per week is not enough to stop pandemic of obesity. And there is need for additional type of physical activity, and we strongly recommend recreational football if we want to reduce the prevalence of inactive people and prevalence of obese people. Because if we combine only high intensity interval training and physical activity, you can stop it. But if we practice physical education and recreational football, you can decrease the number of overweight and obese people. In line with that, and recreational football's broad spectrum effect, we also observe that simultaneously we decrease blood pressure, which is also very important for obese and overweight kids, as well as improve muscular fitness. It's also for cardiovascular and respiratory system. The last part, but very important, is the question we always ask ourselves or during a conference: could sport be part of pediatric obesity prevention and treatment? And based on our evidence we collected in the last 15 years, we for sure can say that recreational football or football which kids play for fun could be part of obesity treatments, but we should modify and adjust the rules for them. One of the best example is the 11 for Health program in Denmark, when they learn some important lecture for life during a recreational football. There is no points, there is no referees during their matches, no one count the goals, but they send to each other important messages. An example: to respect your opponents, to respect the parents, teachers, to have equal opportunity, gender balance, or some social aspects of our life. So at the end, I will conclude with a positive and a promising information. Despite we have a lot of side effects to be included in football during a childhood, I kindly advise policymakers or some bodies who control the competition in football that we should slow down with professionalism in children population. in addition to that, football could be beneficial for children population, but only if we consider fun and play aspects and emphasize them as the most important in football, in childhood football. And finally, but very important, that once someone drop out football, most likely it's this person will be physically inactive during whole life. So to conclude, football for health is a promising type of football for children. Thank you very much for your attention. Hope I'm on time.
Thank you, Professor Milanovic, for a great presentation. I think you hear me. Yes.
I'm open for question. If you have any question,
Yes, of course.
Feel free
Yes.
to give a comment, to criticize my approach, or whatever.
Yes, because I'm moderator, I have to give some comment.
Okay.
We know the problems about the drop off and the reason why they young football players drop off football. And what do you think? Maybe the other sports has the same problem.
Yeah.
The reason is the same.
Yeah, the same. I think the same, but in football we have the biggest problem because expectation from parents and from kids are much higher in football compared to other sports, because parents when kids start to play football, they see it like a chance to have a very good life, and they can be rich and something like that. In other sports, during a young period, there is not a lot of money in youth sports, and expectations are not so big. Therefore, it's not such big a problem. But in football, is a very big problem because players drop out from school, and after that they cannot catch with a daily life, normal life. And this is also why we run at the Faculty One project, dual career of athletes, to aware them and inform them that football and sport is very risky profession, very risky, and they should take care about school as well, their other duties.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for your explanation. And other question? No, you was very clear. We have some problem with internet. Milivoj Dopsai, another speaker, has a problem, and we will change the session 1. And now I invite Professor Srđan Pešić, Medical Faculty, University of Niš, to give invited the lecture, Rational Application of Supplements in Athletes During a Pandemic COVID-19. He sent us a video presentation. Okay, and you can see it only via live stream. And you can go on live stream to see presentation. I send you a link to everybody.
Dobar dan, poštovane koleginice i kolege, i zaista mi je veliko zadovoljstvo da mogu opet učestvovati na vašem skupu. Zahvaljujem se dekanu vašeg fakulteta koji me je tako ljubazno opet pozvao i dao mi šansu da progovorim nešto o suplementaciji kod ljudi koji se bave sportom ili rekreativno ili profesionalno u ova teška vremena pandemije COVID-19. I mi ćemo danas probati da na jedan način koji je, onako da kažem, taksativan, nabrajajući, vidimo šta je to sve od vitamina i minerala, šta je sve to od suplemenata u stvari neophodno ljudima koji su u jednom stalnom procesu vežbanja. Znači, kada govorimo o sportistima i o suplementaciji kod sportista, tu ne mislim isključivo na sportiste kao ljude koji se bave nekim sportom takmičarski, nego mislim i na ljude koji vežbaju svakodnevno ili bar nekoliko puta nedeljno, revnosno i koji su izloženi velikom fizičkom naporu. Da nije bilo korone i da nije bilo ovoga COVID-19, mi ne bismo verovatno nikada saznali tačno mesto minerala i vitamina, odnosno kako mi to popularno kažemo, mikronutricijenata u životu različitih kategorija ljudi. Dakle, ako je ostalo nešto dobro od ovog što je inače loše, što nam pandemija nosi i ne bih o tome zaista govorio, nadam se da više tako teške talase kao što smo ih imali do sada nećemo imati, ali ako je ostalo nešto dobro od toga, to je da je mesto pojedinih vitamina i minerala, da je mesto pojedinih suplemenata makar donekle definisano. I mi smo sada ljude koji se, da kažem, rekreativno bave sportom, koji vežbaju, koji naporno se trude da ojačaju svoje telo i da ga drže u kondiciji, podelili u 5 kategorija i to 5 starosnih kategorija. Ovo je bio deo jednog projekta koji smo mi inače radili u posljednjih nekoliko godina sa kolegama iz Beogradskog medicinskog fakulteta i sa različitih drugih institucija, kao i sa kolegama iz Hrvatske, tako da smo probali da napravimo tu, da kažem, tablicu zdravlja za različite kategorije. Jedna od tih kategorija zdravih ljudi jesu bili sportisti, odnosno ljudi koji uporno vežbaju, i mi smo podelili populacionu kategoriju čitavu na 5 podkategorija, zavisno od godina starosti. Tako da imamo ove mlađe, to su ljudi koji su mlađi od 30 godina, ali imamo i ljudi između 30 i 40, 40 i 50, 50 i 60 i više od 60 godina ukoliko oni intenzivno vežbaju. I kao što ovde sada vidite, naravno da će u različitim situacijama potreba za različitim vitaminima i mineralima biti različita, ali ovde ono što vidimo šta bi ljudima koji intenzivno vežbaju bilo potrebno na svakodnevnom nivou u vreme pandemije COVID-a i da se zaštiti, da ojačaju svoj imunni sistem, ali da njihovi mišići se brže oporavljaju, da imaju manje umora, da imaju manje upalnih inflamatornih procesa. Šta je to što je minimum svih minimuma što se tiče suplemenata? Kao što vidite, u prvom redu je to vitamin D, pa onda iza toga jeste magnezijum, pa vitamin C, pa cink, pa omega-3 polinezasićene masne kiseline i na kraju je acetилцистеин, naročito kod starijih kategorija ovih ljudi. Zašto, pa da krenemo redom, zašto vitamin D? Neko će se pitati i reći, čekajte, pa zar mi nemamo dovoljno sunca, zar nema dovoljno UVB zrakova koji će sada iz naše kože 7-dehidroholesterola napraviti, do provitamina D napraviti vitamin D i na taj način praktično podići njegovu koncentraciju u krvi, pa i kod ljudi koji intenzivno vežbaju. Ono što je sigurno da nema dovoljno više vitamina D nema dovoljno UVB zraka u sunčanoj svetlosti, tako da i stvaranje vitamina D u koži iz provitamina D danas, onako da kažem, jedan proces koji je dosta pod znakom pitanja. Smatra se da ljudi koji žive severno i južno od 23. paralel, odnosno od 23. stepena na severne i južne geografske širine praktično nemaju dovoljno UVB zrakova u sunčanoj svetlosti i da je tu suplementacija vitaminom D zaista neophodno, pa i kod ljudi koji se intenzivno bave sportom. Oni koji se intenzivno bave sportom imaće malo veće potrebe za vitaminom D, jer njihov imunološki sastav i njihova imunološka kompetencija je potpuno drugačija i drugačije funkcionišu, tako da, kao što vidite, kod mlađih verovatno je 1000 intenzivnih jedinica dovoljno na dnevnom nivou, dok će kod starijih ljudi koji se rekreativno bave sportom između 50. i 60. i stariji od 60. biti potrebno 2, 3, a možda i više hiljada internacionalnih jedinica dnevno. Zašto je ovo važno? Na ovom slajdu se vidi jedna tačna šema kako u stvari vitamin D može da pospeši aktivnost u pre svega dendritičnih ćelija, a onda zahvaljujući tome ćelija urođenog imuniteta, kakvi su makrofazi ili neutrofili ili fagociti, i s druge strane ćelija stečenog imuniteta, kakvi, naravno kod ćelija urođenog imuniteta moramo da razmišljamo i natural killer cells, a ovamo ćelijama T limfocita i ćelijama, naravno CD4 helper limfocitima ili CD8 citotoksičnim limfocitima, kao i ćelijama B limfocita koji stvaraju antitela. Dakle, makrofazi, ćelije urođenog imuniteta deluju tako da ih dendritične ćelije brzo prepoznaju i da istovremeno natural killer cells, makrofazi, fagociti, neutrofili dovode do pojačane aktivnosti u smislu ubijanja patogenih bakterija, ali se tiče taj imunni sistem i on nam je uvek potreban, jer se smatra da kod intenzivnog napora i kod intenzivnog vežbanja uvek dođe do blagog pada imunog odgovora, naročito ukoliko se to radi redovno na svakom nivou, naročito ako se radi o sportskim disciplinama ili rekreativnim disciplinama koje iziskuju puno napora, onda dođe do pada imunog odgovora i zato su nam potrebne malo veće doze vitamina D, kao što ovde vidite, to jeste 2000 internacionalnih jedinica kod ljudi starijih od 50 godina, ali mi realno ovde možemo slobodno reći da to može biti i više, može biti 3, 4 pa i više hiljada internacionalnih jedinica. Zašto je sada ovde važan magnezijum i zbog čega je magnezijum, mi ga zovemo sparkle of life, odnosno jedna iskrica života. Magnezijum je dobio ime, ovo će možda biti interesantno, po geografskom području u blizini planine Pelion u Grčkoj kod Volosa, to područje se zove magnezija i magnezijum je dobio po tome. Međutim, magnezija je dobila ime, nije dobila po magnezijumu, nego po magnetizmu, ali o tome drugi put. Dakle, prvi put je on izolovan iz svojih minerala, dolomita koji se nalaze u stenama, od strane Sir Humphrey Davyja iz Engleske, i to početkom 19. veka. Magnezijum se danas smatra jednom zaista iskricom života, zato što je sastavni deo mnogobrojnih procesa, on je sastavni deo naših kostiju i mišića, sastavni je deo zuba, ima ga najviše u ljudskom organizmu, u mišićima, u kostima, u zubima, kofaktori enzima, stabilizatori iona, stimuliše imunni sistem, a rekli smo da kod sportista ceo imunni odgovor može da padne, reguliše glikemiju, što je opet kod sportista jako važno, jer u intenzivnom naporu dolazi do intenzivnog trošenja šećera i do aktivacije perifernih insulinskih receptora. Bez magnezijuma nema brzog oporavka mišića, a on je veoma važan da ne dođe do grčenja, skrećivanja mišića i do dužeg zadržavanja mišića. U njima sintetiše različite neurotransmitere, sintetiše DNK, RNK, važan je u detoksikaciji, toksina iz polične sredine, aktivira ATP. Šta je ATP? ATP vam je izvor energije. Dakle, magnezijum je nešto što nam daje energiju u toku jednog dugotrajnog vežbanja i napornog vežbanja, a s druge strane, zahvaljujući njegovoj važnoj ulozi u metabolizmu proteina, ugljenih hidrata, masti, magnezijum je jednostavno neophodan suplement kod sportista. Dakle, sportisti ne mogu jednostavno da zamisle svoj život i možete me pitati zašto nekada nije bilo neophodno suplementirati se i vitaminom D, pa rekao smo možda ga je bilo u UVB zracima, a sada ga nema i ne unosimo ga dovoljno hranom. Zašto smo se nekada nismo suplementirali magnezijum, a danas se suplementiramo? Zato što nema više magnezijuma u zemljištu, ispostavilo se zemljište, a samim tim nema ga ni u žitaricama, u povrću, u korenastom povrću i tako dalje. Dakle, nije ceo taj, da kažem, suplementaristički pokret koji se, znači to kaže, razvio oko ove korone i pokušaj da se imunni sistem aktivira, nije od juče i jednostavno ima ga sve manje i manje u zemljištu, samim tim ga ima sve manje i manje u hrani. Pogledajte sad magnezijuma. Magnezijum je u zeleno-listnom povrću, ovo je hlorofil, ovo desno-zeleno, ovo crveno je praktično hemoglobin i ono što je gvožđe u hemoglobinu, to je magnezijum u hlorofilu. Pogledajte kako se priroda u stvari poigrala na interesantan način. Da bi vitamin D normalno završio svoju imunološku funkciju, vitamin D koga zovemo izmilošte vitaminom, inače definitivno ispunjava sve uslove da bude hormon, i da bi naši sportisti, naši rekreativci mogli da imaju kompetentan imunni sistem i da on ne bi pao posle intenzivnog napora, da ne bi bili podložni stalnim infekcijama virusnim u toku zimskog perioda, naročito magnezijum je važan. Magnezijum pomaže da se vitamin D veže za receptore. Magnezijum pomaže da se u jetri stvori 25 hidroksi varijanta vitamina D, a u bubrezima 1,25 dihidroksi kalciferol, odnosno jedna ozbiljna prava aktivna varijanta vitamina D. Dakle, magnezijum i vitamin D su vam kao Boba i Brena, kao Nole i Jelena, ruku pod ruku, ne može jedno bez drugog. Vidite sad kako u Americi se smatra da skoro preko 50% populacije ima značajno ispod ili ispod koncentraciju vitamina. Možda bih mogao da kažem da inhibitori protonske pumpe, laksativi, diuretici kao lekovi mogu da smanje magnezijum, ali ovo je vjerojatno važno. Fizička aktivnost smanjuje nivo magnezijuma. Fizička aktivnost smanji magnezijum i zato nam je potrebna ta dodatna suplementacija. Je tako? Ajde da se vratimo na onaj prvi slajd, evo ga ovde. Dakle, mi predlažemo da kod mlađih ljudi, ali to samo kod ove mlađe kategorije i do 30. godine, to bude 375 mg, što inače jesu dnevne potrebe za magnezijum i kod ljudi koji se ne bave sportom, a da već kod osoba koje su u kategoriji od 30 godina pa naviše dnevno bude potrebno 2 puta po 375, dakle 750 mg magnezijuma na dnevnom nivou, jer se u toku sporta on intenzivno troši, više se luči znojem, troši se u ćelijskim procesima i samim tim potrebno je da se magnezijum više i uzima i nadam se da nije dovoljna hrana. Evo ovde vi imate koji su izvori magnezijuma u hrani, zelenolisno povrće, leguminoze, riba, morski plodovi, mleko, mlečni plodovi, očigledno je da je obrađena rafinirana hrana. Najsiromašniji magnezijum nije dovoljno, dakle kao i vitamin D 2 do 3000 internacionalnih jedinica, tako 375 mg magnezijuma do 30. godine, a preko toga čak duple količine magnezijuma, jer se on jednostavno troši. Masna hrana, alkohol, gazirana pića, stres mogu da umanje, jak fizički napor mogu da umanje koncentraciju magnezijuma i da jednostavno dođe do ozbiljnih zdravstvenih problema, ali sklonosti ka infekcijama. Želim da vam pokažem samo jedan slajd i sada ću ga naći. Evo ga ovaj. U mišićima, na primjer, magnezijum, pogledajte ovu sliku ovde, kod zdravih mišićnih ćelija, magnezijum je u stvari taj koji drži kalcijum pod kontrolom. Kalcijum je neophodan za nervnu sprovodljivost, kao što je neophodan i za kontrakciju mišića. I ako bi sada imali manjak magnezijuma, dolazi do enormne kontrakcije mišića, što vodi grčevima i sporijem oporavljanju od napora, odnosno vodi jednostavno dužem naporu, jednostavno vodi sporijem oporavku i dužem naporu. Dakle, nama je potreban magnezijum da bi kalcijum držao pod kontrolom, da bi nam srce dobro radilo, da bi ispratilo naš fizički napor, da bi endotel krvnih sudova mogao da luči sve supstancije koje su važne za širenje krvnih sudova i dovoljan protok krvi kroz mišići i dovode do naših fizičkih mišića. I došli smo do ovog slajda jednog ozbiljnog rada koji pokazuju kako se menja koncentracija magnezijuma kod ljudi koji treniraju i to različite. Imate fizički, rekreativni sport, imate boks kao sport, imate plivanje, imate igru, imate trčanje na traci i tako dalje. I vidite da posle vežbanja koncentracija serumska magnezijuma značajno, to su i beli stubići, značajno pada u svim ovim sportovima, bez obzira da li se radi o rekreativnim sportovima ili se radi o aktivnim sportistima. Dakle, magnezijum je ta vrsta iskrice koja upali adenozin trifosfat da bi on mogao da nam da adenozin monofosfat, koji u stvari je energija koja nam je neophodna u jakom intenzivnom vežbanju. Isto tako da se iz adenozin monofosfata ili cikličnog AMP-a stvara adenozin difosfat, pa adenozin trifosfat, opet je tu neophodan magnezijum, da je suprotni proces i da se ta energija praktično deponuje. Sad osim magnezijuma i vitamina D, koje onako smatram zaista bitnim, ajde da se vratimo na sami početak, opet se vraćam na onu moju tablicu koju smo predložili, da vidimo vitamin C, toliko pričamo o njemu, on je antioksidans i vidite, predlažemo da ljudi koji se ozbiljno bave sportom, zbog tog jednog sport jeste napor jeste jedan metabolički izazov jeste oksidativni stres, u oksidativnom stresu jeste povećano učenje proinflamatornih citokina, pa onda vitamin C kao jedan antioksidativni vitamin i antiinflamatorni kod osoba mlađih od 40 godina predlažemo da to bude pola grama ili 500 miligrama, a kod osoba koje treniraju i rekreativno se bave, a preko 40 godina predlažemo da to bude 1000 miligrama. Dakle, vitamin C zbog antioksidantnog dejstva uz magnezijum, vitamin D kao jedna stalna podrška. I kad smo već ovde, pogledajte ono što je sigurno da su svim sportistima, svih vremenskih kategorija, svih starosnih kategorija potrebni i cink i potrebna je omega-3 polinezasićene masne kiseline, a N-acetilcistein samo kod onih starih i to u dozu 300, odnosno od 600 mg. Pa da se vratimo mi na cink, da vidimo otkuda i zašto nam je potrebno više cinka kod sportista. Sad kažu cink, toliko smo popili u koroni da verovatno u budućem životu ćemo biti, da ćemo u budućem životu verovatno biti čunci. Vidite, u toku intenzivnog vežbanja dolazi do jednog metaboličkog stresa. Taj metabolički stres jeste jedan oksidativni stres. Taj oksidativni stres vodi lučenju proinflamatornih citokina i za to da bi se stvorila jedna ravnoteža između lučenja antiinflamatornih citokina i proinflamatornih citokina, važan nam je cink. Cink nam je ovde faktor koji praktično sprečava da dođe do neplaniranog umora, adaptiraju se mišići na napor, na taj inflamatorni proces i potrebno nam je dovoljno cinka. Inače, kod sportista on se ubrzano gubi i to preko znoja i gubi se preko mokraće, ulazi u tkiva i pogledajte sada ovo, u toku vežbanja cink uđe u naše ćelije, onda uđe u mitohondrije, Golgi aparat, endozom i tako dalje, ali onda iz njih nekada izađe, nekada ne izađe i gomila se u nekim organelama, a u nekima ga ima u manjku. Dakle, svi ti transporteri za cink praktično ne funkcionišu isto kada čovek vežba i kada je pod intenzivnim vežbanjem ili kada ne vežba. I zato nam je potrebno da svi i aktivni sportisti i ljudi koji se rekreativno bave koriste najmanje 10 mg cinka na dnevnom nivou. Ali otkuda sada omega-3, ajde da odemo na omega-3 polinezasićene masne kiseline, to su vam deksaheksanoična i pentanoična kiselina, to su omega-3 polinezasićene masne kiseline, eikozapentanoična i dekozaheksanoična, stavno mi je možda nešto se potpuno skoncentrisa na omega-3, znači eikozapentanoična i dekozaheksanoična i ove omega-3 polinezasićene masne kiseline su važne za neuromuskularnu funkciju, za prenos impulsa, za popravljanje performansi mišića, za ubrzani odmor i za redukovanje praktično bolova u mišićima što dovodi i umora što dovodi do manjeg povređivanja. Dakle, omega-3 polinezasićene masne kiseline u standardnim dozama kao suplement smanjuju oksidativni stres, popravljaju imunnu funkciju, smanjuju moguće traumatsko oštećenje mišića, pucanje i tako dalje, tako da su neophodne. Dakle, dođe smo do toga da su omega-3 takođe neophodni suplementi kod mišića i na kraju to je N-acetilcistein. Kako poznajemo N-acetilcistein? Pa to je mukolitik, on razvije taj gusti sekret kada smo bolesni. Ili sad toga COVID-a ispostavilo se da on je jak antioksidativni agens, da on jednostavno održava stanje u mitohondrijama, održava stanje u toj, da kažem, kontrakciji mišića i da je pomaže da se u toku vežbanja oksidativni stres koji je jak, snažan i do koga svakako dođe, a koji vodi opet lučenju proinflamatornih citokina, inflamacije ili zapaljenju, da se on smanji. Dakle, N-acetilcistein kod rekreativaca između 40 i 50 godine predlažemo da uzimaju dozu 300 mg, a da rekreativci posle 50 do 60 i preko 60 uzimaju čak 600 mg N-acetilcisteina, jer on reguliše citoprotektivne adaptogene faktore, reguliše sve enzime u mišićima, smanjuje skrećivanje mišića, umor, dovodi do bržeg oporavka, u mišićima se bolje preuzima šećer, popravlja se insulinska senzitivnost i tako dalje i tako dalje. I sada vraćam se na početnu poziciju, što bi se reklo, vraćamo se na start u tom sportskom žargonu, ako bismo rekli, a to je ova tablica koju smo mi kroz taj naš projekat jednostavno preporučili i ja ću time završiti ovo moje današnje predavanje. Hvala opet, kažem, na pozivu, a to je da nam je kod sportista potrebno da se suplementiraju vitaminom D, magnezijom, vitaminom C, cinkom, omega-3 poliinzasićenim masnim kiselinama i N-acetilcisteinom, da su doze vitamina D3 oko 1000 internacionalnih jedinica kod mlađih, a kod starih rekreativaca to može da bude 2 pa i 3000 internacionalnih jedinica. Magnezijum 375 mg kod mlađih sportista ili rekreativaca, a već kod onih koji su stariji od 30 godina to može da bude 750 ili 2 puta po 375 mg, vitamin C kod mlađih 500, a već od 40 godine 1000 mg, jer je veći oksidativni stres. Videli ste da vežbanje dovodi do pada imuniteta, dovodi do češćih oboljenja, pa nam je tu potreban i cink, i to 10 mg kod svih starosnih kategorija, omega-3 poliinzasićene masne kiseline, eikozapentanoične, dokozaheksanoične kiseline i na kraju mukolitik, N-acetilcistein u dozi od 300 mg kod ovih koji su između 40 i 50 godina, a kod rekreativaca preko 50 godine 600 mg. Ja se nadam da vas nisam ugnjavio i da smo nešto svi zajedno saznali, makar našli mesto gde se i kako trebaju primjenjivati suplementi kod ljudi koji se bave intenzivnim sportskim aktivnostima. Zahvaljujem se još jednom i nadam se da se vidimo sledeće.
Okay. I hope that you heard the presentation of Professor Srđan Pešić from University of Niš, rational application of supplements in athletes during the pandemic COVID-19. And now we can make a coffee break, but we have a technical problem with invited lecturer Professor Dobson and Professor Raggio, and we will change the timetable and we start the second session not at 2 p.m., 4:30. It's correct. I think that everything will be okay. No. 5:30 p.m. Today we can start a new session. It's correct because we have solved everything problem with internet from Sarajevo and Belgrade. Thank you a lot and see you soon. Bye.